Good evening, everyone. So who feels like a monkey right now? Ever been told no, 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 you can't do that, and no one's ever told you why? I was lucky enough to be in the same session as Ruth, and it was fascinating to see the silence in the room as everyone was going, banana, we're eating. This is us, isn't it? This is us. And to Tim's point earlier, I feel like we are on a cusp of a wonderful time right now in insurance. So before I start, quick show of hands. Who in the room is business people? Small hands going up slowly. IT? Others? Okay, we have a reasonable mix of others, business and IT in the room. I just wanted to get a sense of where I was going. Okay. Who's heard the quote, software is eating the world? Right? It came home to roost to me at the Future GI conference last week when one of the guys stood on the stage and said his ambition is to replace every human being with software. Why wouldn't you? I sat there and thought, yikes. Not only are we going to be monkeys, but we're going to be replaced by a piece of technology that can do this thing for us. But I've heard it so many times, you think, okay, it's a great thing, technology's great, it's wonderful. I am probably one of the biggest technology advocates out there. I love what we're doing right now. But when you hear it from a CEO of a large insurance organization say, I'm going to replace my people with software, it's quite a scary thought. And I think the room went silent at the same time. But it's not necessarily that simple, is it? We've all been there. We've all seen programs of different shapes and sizes. I think technology programs have a history of, let's call it not great success sometimes, which has given us a clouded view of the world. And it always refers me back to one of the stories I heard years ago about the digital exchanges. When the first digital exchanges came out, you may have heard this before, they needed one man and a dog to run the digital exchange. People heard this before? No? The man was there to feed the dog. The dog was there to keep the man away from the equipment. Right? And I keep going back to the same things time and time again and go, actually, software's eating our world. We're replacing lots of manual processes through an evolutionary process. It's normal, it's natural. We shouldn't be afraid of these things. We shouldn't worry about the change that's coming. We should look at it with both open arms and embrace what it means for us. Without digital exchanges today, our businesses would be nowhere at all. They'd be completely different. So for me, those sorts of changes are exciting, evolutionary changes, and I compare them back to insurance time and time again. The InsurTech swell, I'm going to call it a swell right now, because I look back a year ago, it was like 300 companies, InsurTech, disruption's coming, look what's happening in fintech, and we're disintermediating the banks. I look at it today, and there's like 13 or 1,400 InsurTechs out there disrupting our very world. It's probably one of the most exciting times right now, and you can break it down from every single little piece of the value chain and go, there's someone doing that, there's someone doing that, there's someone doing that, and if you want a supplier to go and fix that over there, there's someone working on that as well. It's not just externally focused on customers, although I'd say 50% of it is. Lots of it is focused on robotics and things inside the organization. Everyone's hearing robots are going to replace human beings going forward. Of course they're going to augment things, but to what extent? So we've got to work out how we can leverage and use that as well. In fact, there's a new organization I'm working with in the States that are now aggregating data out of the startups because there's so many. Because if we started looking at all the startups, we go, actually, I can't cope with 1,300 people or 12 people going into this place. You end up in a whole new marketplace going, actually, you know what, we're going to do an RFP. We're going to slow this whole thing down, do an RFP, and make it really quick for everyone. And we all feel great about that, right? I've been on both sides of the RFP process, and it's as fun on one side as it is on the other. I'm saying it with a big smile. So this GI conference where the CEO stood on stage actually did one of the best presentations I've seen about the Disruptor story. And we've all heard it, and we're all excited by it, from self-driving cars to connected this, to machines that learn, to things that repair, and the list goes on. There's 6 to 10 different key disruptors out there that time and time again come back. I know we should start to worry quite a lot when I start hearing CEOs on stage with a pitch-perfect story about what's disrupting their industry. So for me, that says, what are we doing about it? If we're doing the same old things and our CEOs have moved on leaps and bounds, when you've got CEOs of large UK insurance companies going, we're a fintech, what does it actually mean to us? And is it filtering down in our organization quickly enough? I often get quoted about regulation. Regulation is stopping us. So we can't, back to Ruth's point, we can't do that because it's always been done this way. Regulation is blamed time and time again. Who think regulation has stopped some of their projects in the past? Show of hands. One very brave soul. And Paolo's got a hand up, I think. No, Paolo hasn't got a hand up. I get it all the time. But actually I see now the more agile, the more nimble organizations are actually using regulation as their friend. If anyone went to the InsurTech conference in Las Vegas a few weeks back, The regulators were in the room. It was the first time people were working side by side to go, actually, how do we help you disrupt our industry? Because we know you're coming. Regulators don't like black boxes. So if they're involved inside the tent working with you to work out what's going on, they're much happier about the outcome and the right things for the customer. So for me, I see regulation as a great opportunity, and reg tech is another sector that's growing massively right now, as a great opportunity to embrace and use that as your disruptor. This world, if I look at the world of insurance from my non-insurance lens sometimes, I look at this world of oil tankers. And oil tankers, as we all know, take a long time to turn around. But then you get these little blips of speedboats. There are these insurtechs or startups going, we're going to change the world, and we've got 3 passengers on board, and we're sprinting for it. And we're going to make a difference, while the oil tanker is still doing this. And I've seen organizations, we've all sat there, we've all been in steering meetings where you go through the process. We're reviewing the progress. And we have to do this for certain reasons. But what happens when that thing just sprints straight past you? Where do you go and go, well, that business has been taken from these guys over there. You've been disrupted in the middle of your big program. Are you ready for that sort of change? And I don't think from the experience that I've seen, from the experience, my personal experience, and things that I've seen, that we take these things into account when we're starting to line up that program to start off with. So Agile, and I've got a whole bunch of buzzwords I'm going to talk about briefly. So Agile, who's heard of Agile? Come on, everyone's hands up, right? Who loves Agile? Come on, where's Rod? Yeah, right? Agile. So we've all been through Agile sprints and Scrum Masters, and we've introduced a whole new vocabulary to the world of insurance. And it's quite exciting, right? And actually, there's a lot of stuff that's really, really good in Agile. But Agile organizations, in my mind, or Agile opportunities, projects, programs, whatever you want to call them, really come to roost when you get to Agile decision making, to Ruth's point. Who's got an Agile procurement department? 2 hands, Tim and a gentleman at the back. An Agile procurement department, right? And we're all smiling here. And it's true, right? I don't mean to be mean to procurement folks, because genuinely they're there for the interest of the organization. But we're not aligning our organization with our objectives from a business perspective or a customer's perspective often enough. Agile procurement. Agile processes. Who's got agile processes right now? Okay? We've got a very agile guy at the back. It's very interesting. But again, most insurance organizations I've gone to don't have the agile processes or agile procurement. And the worst one of all, agile decision making. So come on, let's see a show of hands. I know you do, Tim. And we know okay, we've got 3 agile people in the room. It's nearly going to be an auction here. We should go, after this session, we should go and speak to these guys and work out what's going on. And the reason I say that, so personal experience, I have a client right now that's looking to do a piece of work in the disruptor space that's going to change the way they do their business. It's going to be really, really impactful. It's a 3-month piece of execution work. We are in month 8 of decision making about this 3-month piece of execution work. And sometimes I sit there and go, I understand why we're going through it. I understand the procurement process. I understand all the things that wrap this stuff. But unless we understand what we're trying to get out of it at the end of the day and apply the same principles that got us to there in the first place, we are going to fail. And it's going to be pointed at someone else and go, I blame you, or I blame IT. And often I just feel that we don't sit there shoulder to shoulder, business and IT, which is why I asked earlier, to say, what are we trying to achieve together? And often it's that, well, they've always failed in the past, there's a long-running program, and I'm not sure about this, and we need to put all this governance in place to stop it. How many people have had a decent-sized failure that they're happy to put their hand up and go, I'm proud I failed, this is what I've learned, this is what I've moved on from? I don't need people, I was going to say, I don't need people to show their hands, but it's impressive to see. And typically you don't see that in an insurance audience. You see them going, we're afraid of failure, we're actually not even afraid of failure, actually it's not allowed, it's not permitted. But you walk into any of these, I would call it funky zones or funky environments where businesses come to grow and accelerate things, and they're happy with failure. They embrace it. They understand what they've done. Everyone's heard about fail fast time and time again. We really and truly, from every part of the organization, need to start embracing this from the top down and bottom up and go, you know what, we're okay with it. If it's in a sandboxed way or a sheltered way that allows us to try something and move on. And there's actually some folks in the room that have done that I would encourage you to go speak to afterwards, that are actually really good at going, you know what, we wasted 37 days effort or 40 days build effort, and if it didn't work, guess what, we'll move on. The number one thing I'm hearing from my clients right now, I'm brand new into the firm, but the number one thing I'm hearing both here and previously is product speed to market. If you're driving an oil tanker, your product speed to market is really, really, really slow, and the market's moved. I talked about Pokemon Go insurance last week. There was genuinely a product called Pokemon Go. I don't want to see any hands because I don't want to embarrass anyone, but number of people still using Pokemon Go. But it was a massive, massive phenomenon, I'm going to call it, at one point, and it just died. In my mind, it's just died. If anyone puts their hands up, there's more drink and food over here afterwards. But are we agile and nimble enough to start up a product, get a product to market and use it there and then let it die when it needs to die? The answer is probably not. And in the cases I've seen, probably not. Talent. So I met a gentleman before we started this is his first job out of university. I don't mean to embarrass you. Put your hand up. Where are you? He's gone. Oh, he's gone already. Look at that. And I was really, really impressed because you go through school, you go through university, and we ask the same questions. Who wants to go into insurance? It's not often seen the place where people go to have great ideas, do great things, and change the world. But I fundamentally believe we are on the brink of a great evolution, not revolution, but a brink of a great evolution that will fundamentally change how society interacts with financial services organisations. And I think insurance has got the opportunity way, way ahead of banking. You look at our next generation and what they believe from a social purpose perspective, and all the studies that have been done from various different people out there, our opportunity is just huge right now. And we have to be the place that talent comes to do things and do change for good, not where talent comes to die or innovation comes to die. That's both outside the industry and within. We can't be seen as these guys that, well, you know what, those programs don't work and we'll get there eventually, and that one was really bad. Stop looking in the rearview mirror. Let's look ahead. Let's look out the windscreen. And you're always going to have people sitting in the back seat as backstreet drivers. My wife's not here, so I'll say nothing else right now, but you get the idea. There'll be people going, you can't, it's been done that way before, to Ruth's point, right? We've got to take that, we've got to ignore asking permission, we've got to keep our foot on the accelerator and keep driving. It's the same thing. I often look at David and Goliath, and we know who wins that story, right? Tech is easy. Who's heard that before? Lots of smiles, right? Tech is easy. So our agile guy, just for the guy sitting in the front, now has beer in his hand, right? Now that is agile. Tech is easy, and we hear it time and time again. Oh, it's just screwing things together or bolting things in, or you can put the CD in, come back with a coffee. We know that's not the case. We know, and for people that understand and have looked at things like NLP and all that sort of stuff, I'm not a proponent of it, but matching's important. Understanding the organisation you're trying to change, its history, its culture, its pedigree, understanding where you're trying to get to is really important when you're trying to do these changes. I've been in programs that are 6 years long, that have 250 plus people across multiple different continents in 13 different work streams that I can tell you to the day they started, to the day they finished, that they're on time, to budget, and delivered what they said they were going to deliver. Equally, before the session, one of my friends and colleagues from a firm who I won't name said to me, sometimes on time and to budget isn't good enough. You sit there and go, my God, what else do they want? You know, I can take my shirt off, but it's going to be pretty embarrassing for one of us. But you sit there and go, so on time and to budget, and the certainty that we desire as insurance organisations is not good enough. So what do we really need? How do we excite people? Equally, I've been in programs that are 2 weeks long or 1 week long, where you have a sprint and you get into a room and you get stuff done. And the sign on the wall to the earlier comments is a real interesting comment. How many people will be brave enough to put it up on the wall and go, you know what, or just point it every time you walk into someone's office and go, just get stuff done. Stop asking. Stop coming through a process to do things. Just get stuff done. It'd be lovely to see, wouldn't it? On big programs and on Agile, one of the things that I like between the two of these is the ability to course correct. So when people look at weapons and missiles and starting programs off, one thing we do a lot of, and back to my point about planning earlier, is I worked with a large organisation for quite a while that likes to plan, down to the very nth degree. Sound like anyone else in insurance right now? But when you launch that button and hit go, finally, what happens for all those other conditions that change along the way? What happens about mergers and acquisitions? We've all been through, in fact, our industry has been through a whole plethora of mergers and acquisitions. We can't always and don't always take into account all these changing factors, wind speed, weather, all these things that are going to happen to us, people resigning. The number of people changing in our industry right now at executive level is really interesting. So how do we take those into account when we start press the go button? The answer is we can't. We can plan for them and we can get to 100% before we go, but more often than not, I'm seeing people saying, you know what, good is good enough. Stop trying to get to 100% perfect before you press launch, Because if you've got the ability to go course correct midway through things, and for those of fans of Superman or other stuff, you see the missile heading towards the baseball field, and you can intercept it and off it goes somewhere else, right? We have to learn to be okay with not 100%. And our industry is back to afraid of failure, needs 100%. We flip the boat round, stop driving the oil tank and start driving the dinghies and the little things that are flying along and around the outside. If we hit a big wave, we can turn left or turn right. If we go through an M&A, we can turn left, we can turn right. We can bring more people on board. We've got to be able to and be comfortable with starting with A, good is good enough, and B, not with 100%. And if we sat there at the beginning with that approach, we actually might have a better outcome that's more aligned to the changed goals of the organisation by the time you actually get to the finish point. I'm going to finish with just two things. I genuinely feel right now we are on the forefront of a evolution. I don't believe, like our Uber friends, that there is a revolution taking place. I still think Uber is an evolution. They haven't changed the actual mode of me getting in a taxi from one location to the other. All they've done is make it more relevant and more convenient for me to go, I'm here, get me there, tell me the price, and don't involve cash. So for me, that's a convenience factor, because I've never got any cash on me, and I know exactly where they're coming and what car I'm going to get into. Recently, my experience with them has been, if I'm honest, woeful. I'm back into black cabs, because it says arriving now, and 5 minutes later they go, still not here, we're late. So the thing they got me to in the first place has changed. I don't think they've moved quick enough to go, actually your driver's late, Nigel, he'll be there in 6 minutes, you have the opportunity to cancel or jump in a black cab. So we've got to keep changing with these things going forward. And my last one's a quote that I go back to time and time again, and it's, I think people in this room are here for a reason. We're all passionate about an industry that we love, right? The insurance industry. But I go back to the same old things. Passion may fuel your fire, but tenacity will get you to your destination. And I go back to it time and time again for a simple reason, because I've never met a more passionate group of people about insurance and what we're trying to do and the outcome, and having lived through various different claims, knowing what insurance really means in a time of need when you've got a family moved out and whatever else. Genuinely passionate group of people to do things. But unless we apply that level of tenacity that we have in the startup world, or the guys that are not asking for permission to do stuff, we'll never get to that destination. So for me, we've got to be braver, we've got to be bolder, we've got to have the courage to just go do stuff sometimes. And that for me kind of sums up my experience in kind of the things that are changing right now. Thank you.